everybody to the second episode of the Brew Crew Podcast. Me and Chev back at it again. It's your boys, and we're excited because there's a lot of things happening. Last week was a big week.
We are very excited.
And this week is shaping up to be nearly as big. So, Chev, why don't you tell them what we got going on today, and then we'll get right into it.
Well, we were thinking about, we'll talk about this, the first introduction of spoilers we've had from Core 21. We'll probably be doing spoilers next week, too, with the second half of Core 21, and then also Jumpstart is coming out, too. It's a ridiculous time to be alive. And we'll go a little bit into probably the standard metagame post-companions, what that's looked like, whether or not we were right, and if our listeners last week could tune in and then capitalize on that information, which totally we were the only ones who called. So I feel like we're definitely owed for this current standard environment. But yeah, I think it's a relatively light week. It should be a short cast.
Sounds good, Chev. Well, you said you've been playing a bit of standard, so why don't you tell us what you're seeing since the companion blanket has been lifted off the off of our format.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I definitely won't lie. It's been a much more unique experience out there. Now, I neglected standard probably this last reset, or I don't know, what do you call the thing when you go down to bronze from silver or from gold to silver, whatever that period is.
Right, the end of each season.
Yeah, exactly. I've been sleeping on standard the last couple, so that's put me back at bronze 3, which is a wild place to be, especially when you start running a tiered deck and you're just wiping the floor with whatever you find. And recently I've seen a lot of red aggro builds, like we talked about last week. They're definitely coming in because they're easy, they're low to the ground. You've got all your Tin Street Dodgers, all of your Ember Cleaves, everything that you would expect from a quick red aggro deck. But I also saw this really weird Abzan deck, and I fortunately or unfortunately, beat it before it could get to where it was going. But I had no idea. It was dropping Triomes and setting up an Eerie Ultimatum, and I don't know if it was just a bronze thing or what was coming to that, but it didn't last long.
Bronze is a... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's a wild land.
Bronze
is a beautiful, beautiful, silly place.
I like what they're doing down in bronze. I wish they had a little bit more of that up in gold and so where I'm usually hanging out. I would agree though that I've seen a lot of mono red. I think we were spot on last week when we called that aggro is going to be the name of the game for these next couple weeks. I've seen a bunch of mono red. I've seen Boros. I've seen mono white. There's actually a pretty nasty mono white list that's like Healer's Hawk, All That Glitters, Ginger Brew.
I will be ready when Healer's Hawk rotates. I've had enough of that 1/1.
Yeah, and that deck still plays Lurrus too, because like they just are playing a bunch of 1 mana cost things. So if they need to, they can just play Lurrus real easy and then grab stuff back. So yeah, but I've seen a lot of that, and I've seen some Teamer Reclamation coming back, which I think we predicted as well. That was kind of really the only tier 1 deck that didn't adopt a companion regularly. So that's coming back, and that is still a powerful deck. And I've personally been playing that cycling deck that I love to hate on so much, but it's just so much fun to play. And I have played a lot of mirrors. There are a lot of people coming with the cycling deck, at least where I've been on the ladder. So
really?
Yeah, wow. It's been a lot of
bronze land that it's empty. They must have all ascended.
You figured that they would that bronze would love it though, because it's just a bunch of uncommons. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on in bronze land. I jumped back into where I was pre-companion, which was Rakdos Sacrifice, and I don't think it has any cards from Ikoria in there, and it is just as powerful as it was. I mean, we're talking 4 Witch's Cauldrons, 4 Cauldron Familiars, the Mayhem Devils, the Midnight Reapers, or whatever that card is. Just all of those same sacrifice triggers, and it is cleaning house.
Yeah,
I think a couple people have been running it in competitions and stuff, but it's great when I'd love to try new things, but when I've got 1 wild card for Mythic and 1 wild card for Rare, I'm gonna go back to my old favorites, and that's gonna be Rakdos Sacrifice every day of the week.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that deck. It's not as prominent as it used to be, but it's still very powerful. I've also one last thing is I've seen Jun Food making a comeback, which is cool because I really like
You
Jun
just
Food.
wanted to make a comeback. I don't know if you saw it or someone
No,
played it and
I've played
you're
against
ready
it.
to.
I've played against it probably 4 or 5 different times, so it's not super prominent, but I've seen it enough. But the thing is that people are not playing Corvold anymore, which I think is a sin because I love Corvold. That guy's my jam. But people are just playing instead of that. They're just playing a lower game and they're playing Bolus's Citadel and then just like tearing through their deck. So I've probably lost to
Interesting.
it. I've probably lost to it 4 of the 5 times I've played it just because they get a Bolus Citadel down and then that's it. I
Yeah.
don't get another turn. But anyway,
You thinking you'll show him what's up with Corvold? Give Corvold the send off it deserves. Well, I mean Corvold's not rotating, but part of the deck is.
yeah. That I don't know if that deck is gonna maintain after rotation because it loses Mayhem Devil and also Priest of the Forgotten Gods, which are both
Yeah.
pretty important.
Same with Rakdos Sacrifice. Two of the biggest things that you can do to basically put the hurt on the opponent, and you're losing them both.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I might have to bring Junk Food out just a little bit longer. Make sure it gets its last time in the sun.
I wonder if it'll switch to or we'll see that sacrifice strategy more in black white with. Oh no, Cruel Celebrant rotates too. Yeah, it's got to be red black because
Mm-hmm.
there was so much sacrifice energy in Theros, and I think we're seeing some more in Core 21. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't really looked at the archetypes for Core 21 yet, but I feel like we're seeing some more of that sacrifice in red there. So it'll be interesting to see if it's still competitive enough or it loses out on the cards that are leaving.
Yeah, I think there will still be the tools to make a deck. Will it be tiered? I don't know. Will one of us eventually try it? Yes,
Oh, for sure.
but yeah, I think there will. Wizards has usually printed enough consistent support that there can usually be some sort of sacrificey slash recursion deck in the format.
Yeah.
Usually in those Mardu colors.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what standard's looking like. We called our shots pretty hard, and I think we got there on the most part. But now Wizards is dumping a bunch new cards on us that are going to shake up the format even more. So Chev, why don't we talk about these cards? And I don't know if you have anything that you've got your eye on that you want to talk about first, but I got some things I know I want to talk about.
No, jump in.
So the first thing I'm seeing is just today we got a reprint of all the enemy colored temples. So they were printed originally last core set M20, and they're just running it back again, same art and everything, just because M20 is going to rotate. So now when that rotates, the only set of dual lands that we'll have that's full is these temples, because we've got Theros Beyond Death temples, which is the allied colors, plus these now. So we'll have a full set of temples. So between that and all of the triomes, I think we're going to start to slow down in standard. I think it's going to be a lot slower standard, just because you're not getting those. You can't shock anything in and have it untapped. You know what I mean? Unless people want to start playing basics.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, but I wouldn't be too sure because when rotation comes, we've got Zendikar coming, and they're not going to have a main set without a solid land cycle. And if all the temples have been redone in these last two, it's going to be something that comes in untapped with some condition. And maybe we won't have the same consistency as the shocks. Hopefully not. But I think this is more of a not really much to I can't think of the words. It's not something I would count on that standard's getting much slower. I think it's too hopeful
Fair
in
enough.
a sense that we think we're slowing down yet. I will say though, I'm a little bit interested and kind of upset with the way that they've done these temples. And if anyone has noticed, Fabled Passage is also getting reprinted, which is interesting because Fabled Passage getting reprinted in Core 21 means it'll rotate as the same time as Eldraine. So the card isn't lasting longer in the format. It's just getting reprinted again for availability, which is good for paper Magic. Like, this is fantastic for anyone who wants to pick up a copy for Commander or going down to their local game store. But as we know, due to COVID and other things, like, those aren't as common right now. So really, we're looking at these coming out for Arena. And, I'm very glad these temples are coming back. I'm very glad that Fabled Passage is coming out. But what I'm also seeing is I'm seeing 6 rares that I could pull in a pack that have no use to me because I already have 4 of all the temples and the Fabled Passage with the same exact art. and these won't get covered by duplicate protection because they are from a new set. So we're going to be stuck with a chance of opening these lands that are useless to anyone who's currently playing, since you can continue to use the M20 lands if the land itself is still legal in the format. So while I'm very happy that they're getting reprinted for paper, I think it's interesting what we're going to see in Arena, because this looks like 6 dud drops to me.
Well, I have a couple thoughts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One, I don't think the temples are dud drops because the M20. Well, I guess technically you can use the old versions in Arena, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
But anyway, you have to remember all these things are being reprinted on Arena, so that means that people who are entering the game fresh or who don't have 4 of these, now have more chances to open these, because like Throne and Core 20 packs are hard to come by nowadays unless you're
Right. Yeah, they're a little rarer.
cranking up the Mastery Pass. Also, I think yes, one Fabled Passage is good because that card was actually kind of getting expensive in paper. I think it was $9 or $10.
Yeah,
so this is
getting up there.
But I think that this is nice because it almost sets a precedent. I'm wondering if Fabled Passage is going to be one of those things where, kind of like how Evolving Wilds gets printed every other set, I'm wondering if Fabled Passage maybe is just going to be a thing that they just always print in the core sets, which would be nice to set as a precedent, just because it's such a good card, but it's not like a fetch land like you'd get out of Zendikar or Khans of Tarkir that's super powerful that needs to maintain that price point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, generally, like, I'm not too upset when I pull another uncommon and I already have 4 from a previous set, and now I just have 5. But when it's a rare, it just hurts a little more. Like, when I open one, it'll be like, oh, cool, that's a card. But now I'll have 5 of it. And so, while I do understand the point that it's good for people that are joining, and obviously I'm glad that they have a Temple Cycle and another card that's useful for these kind of things, I feel like there's a chance that, I don't know, people could be disappointed when they open these sort of things and only get 1/10 of a rare as kind of compensation.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But anyway, I like that Wizards is reprinting it. I mean, obviously the world is not always going to be Corona land, so going forward, I think this is
right. Yeah,
positive steps. But anyway,
I'm very happy to be able to pick up these temples for like $1 each for any of my decks that currently don't have one. And Fabled Passage, if we can get that down to like $2 or $3, that's going in every single commander deck I have.
Oh yeah, I'll snap up like 4 or 5 of them easy if it drops down that
Perfect
low.
for casual Magic. I'm very excited to see all these lands getting reprinted for that kind of thing, because like what a lot of budget decks too have struggled with is dual land access. And yeah, if you're running a $25 commander deck, you're going to suck it up with Blossoming Sands or Bloodfell Caves. But having access to slightly more powerful things that are actually interesting to play and, push the game forward a little bit, I think is a tremendous boon to those kind of people that are playing at a more price-focused sort of meta.
Definitely. There's actually, Wizards has been really good with the reprints this set. I just want to throw a couple cards at you right now that are big ticket items, especially in Commander, which we'll discuss, that they've reprinted. So Heroic Intervention, super powerful card, was originally printed in Kaladesh block. I forget which one. But
Ether Revolt.
But yeah, that was a very expensive card. I want to say it was going on $20. I know I only have one copy.
It's a unique effect to green, right? Because green is tertiary in Indestructible, and then I think they're secondary in Hexproof. I forget how that whole thing works, but like it's just not something that you think a green deck is going to have access to.
Yeah, it's just such a powerful
card.
This
is going to do in Standard. I wasn't playing Standard when this first came out, but I'm definitely like with where green is now. If I can't even destroy those giant creatures that are coming, it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it did not really see play in the first Standard it came out. I mean, it was originally just like a $2 or $3 rare, and then Commanders came and got it, and so I don't know. It could be interesting. I'm wondering if it's any better than just playing counterspells like the blue-green X decks do anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's plenty of counterspells that you can get for 2 or even 1 mana.
Generally Simic, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, but I'm sure I'm going to get blown out by a ton, and I'm going to be pissed off every time. Another couple big reprints, Massacre Worm. which I think this is only the second time it's been reprinted. I think it's only
I think
had
it's the second.
2 or 3 printings. The new art sucks. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, no, this is actually just the first reprinting. It was in Mirrodin Besieged, and then this is the first time it's being printed outside of that.
Dang. Yeah. So.
But don't forget that the regular art for the card is the traditional art from Mirrodin Besieged. It's only this full art showcase treatment that has the new one.
Okay. All right. Well, if you want to bling it out, I would not recommend it. The showcase art I think is not good. I think the old art's great. This has traditionally been a very powerful card. Once again, this is a big commander card, so that's nice because I don't know the price point for Massacre Worm, but I know it was a lot. It's a mythic.
16 currently,
and it's probably come down a little bit. So let's say it was a $20-ish card. Yeah. So this is nice, and it'll only drop further. Will it see playing in Standard? I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
The thing is, it's really good against a lot of those aggro decks we've been seeing, but I think by the time you have to get to 6 mana, especially 3 black, there are not a lot of decks that want to go long that are black base. So I just don't know if you're going to be able to get to this.
We haven't seen much that's going to kind of revitalize a kind of big mana black mentality, and I would be surprised if Wizards goes back in that direction because a lot of those cards are ancient at this point.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I do like to see that it's reprinted. I know if I open any, I will be trying them out. Right next to Massacre Worm on the spoilers, Solemn Simulacrum, the sad robot. Always good to see him. This guy.
Oh, for sure.
The showcase art is sweet. It's excellent. He's got like this kind of like he looks almost like a lava lamp, honestly.
I was thinking Terminator.
He does kind of look like the Terminator, yeah. Like the second Terminator where he can turn like all liquid metal and stuff.
Metal guy,
yeah. Now that you're right, that's exactly what it looks like. And then the regular art is the art from I believe it was the new Commander set, which was either this year or last year, which is cool. So Solemn, he is a staple in Commander. He's just always been like between $5 and $10, so this is just nice. It will
and
bring
especially
him back
getting
down.
reprinted in a set like a core set, this is gonna do wonders because every time we see it, it's just coming out in the Commander set, and so like the availability is only equal to the number of people that buy the Commander sets and then sell the Solemn, which is generally not happening. And to get access to it in a core set, like that's fantastic. They really. And some of these cards are definitely. It's fantastic they're getting reprinted in this way and not a supplemental set.
Yeah, definitely. In Standard, I honestly think that this guy is not going to see any play. He is a 4 mana.
It's a rough point to be. Like, for 4 mana to get a basic land, like, and then drawing cards is not something really that I think people are going to care about. But with the access that Simic has, and they're generally the ones looking for lands with Uro and Utopia. What's the Utopia one?
I think you're thinking Growth Spiral?
Yeah, Growth Spiral. That's what I'm thinking of. And all those things, like 4 mana is just a little bit too high on the curve.
Yeah, I mean, by the time would want to cast this, I already can cast a Nissa or a Cavalier or, something plus counterspell backup. So I think Solemn will have a role to play once rotation, because at rotation you're losing Nissa, you're losing Growth Spiral, you're losing a lot of the mana dorks like Paradise Druid and Leaf Kid Druid. So once we get there,
slower Standard that you were talking about, I definitely think Solemn will see some play.
Yeah, I think Solemn could be really good in control decks, like a blue-white X sort of deck, but not until the fall.
Yeah.
All right. Two more reprints I want to talk about, and then Chev, I'll let you take the reign. One, real quick, Rewind. I love Rewind. I think it's a great card. 4 mana, counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. But in a Standard where we have, blue green X ramp decks that are playing enough counter spells, things that also are playing Teferi, 3 mana Teferi, but we'll talk about new Teferi later. And then also where blue green Flash is a very powerful deck. This card is going to be so freaking annoying, and I'm going to rage quit every time someone plays it against me. I can guarantee.
I don't know. I think that this could be very powerful. And granted, it was in Dominaria Unwind, right? That was the 3 mana untap 3 lands counter target non-creature spell. Um, Let me
Something
double check that.
something along those lines, yeah.
But I don't remember seeing that. Yeah, counter target non-creature spell up untap up to 3 lands. I didn't see much of that at all. And maybe that's because this is more open, and that it can counter any spell. But I'm not sure that this is going to get the play that we think.
I don't know. It remains to be seen, but I just I sensed my salt coming in when this happens. So we'll see. And then actually, what am I saying? I'm scrolling down to the card I wanted to see. I'm just gonna throw out a couple names because these are all just like cards that were between 10 and a lot of dollars. Ruined Halo, seeing a print. Only time it's been reprinted since I think Shadowmoor when it originally was. I don't know how effective
Shadowmoor.
I don't know how effective it's gonna be, but it was expensive, so it's nice to see it reprinted. Azusa Lost But Seeking has been reprinted, I think, a couple times now, but still an expensive card, super powerful card.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how I feel about Ramp having access to that, but I also don't know if a fragile 3 mana creature that lets you ramp like that is actually going to be effective when we
Yeah,
have
because
things
we're
like
not seeing much play from that
Uro and stuff.
that Dryad from Theros, and that Dryad does the same thing, right? It allows you to play an additional land each turn.
Yeah, I mean, Azusa lets you play 2 more, but that Dryad
Right.
also has the thing of making all your lands um,
Do for anything.
all types. Yeah, so
Yep.
I think I'm the only person who was playing that Dryad actually. I used to play. I think I played it I played it in Jund Food for a little bit. Yeah. So Azusa,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is gonna have to wait until rotation. Then I think she's gonna be super powerful and probably annoying. And then what you're gonna do after you've played Azusa and you've played all those extra lands is you're gonna play Ugin the Spirit Dragon. This is huge because that card was like I think $70 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's how high it got up.
Yeah, I have a
It's now
personal.
back
Oh,
down to 40 because of this.
yeah, so and hopefully it'll
That
drop a
makes
little
sense.
bit lower, but that's a card that's seen play in like it sees play in like Modern and Tron, but also a huge commander card. Um, I have
Mm-hmm.
nostalgia just because we started playing right when that or right after I
Yeah.
think it was Fate Reforged came out. We started playing right in Dragons, and I actually
Yep.
was
Yeah, that
able
was one of the
to.
first mythics I opened.
Yeah, exactly. I think I opened one too a little bit after you did, so it's cool to see him come back.
It's
And
lived in my Kozilek deck ever since. Might have to if I open the new showcase art though, I might have to keep it.
oh yeah,
But other than
yeah,
that, certainly not something I'm gunning for.
the showcase art is sweet, and then also like the full art of the normal
Mm-hmm.
art is also really cool. So if I manage to procure either of those, I'm gonna swap mine out because my copy's actually pretty beaten up. And then
Back when we didn't know how to take care of cards.
exactly back when we were playing without sleeves and all that stuff, I can't believe it. And then last crazy reprint is Grim Tutor, which is
Mm.
notorious because it was like $250 and was only printed
Yeah, it
in.
was only printed in Starter 1999, which I mean the name gives it away. It's been a while since those cards were printed.
Yeah, yeah, and that also was like a starter product. It wasn't like an actual set or anything like that. And print runs
Mm-hmm.
back then were ridiculously low anyway. So um, it's cool that it is seeing print. I'm probably gonna pick up a copy because it's another good commander card. It's probably gonna go right into my Esper control deck. I don't think it's gonna see any
Yep.
play in standard though because just
Yeah, it's 3 mana tutor, and I don't know what decks benefit from it.
yeah, nothing. And like I really think the only thing that would want to play this even is like a combo deck, but we don't really have that many combo decks, and it's just so slow. Standard is just so powerful. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if this is gonna do it. Honestly, I
Right,
don't
if you're
even
waiting
know.
till turn 3 to get your piece, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know how good something like Demonic Tutor would be in this standard because people just go through their deck so fast anyway. You don't really even need a tutor. All your cards are heaters.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. I hope it doesn't get printed because I'm sure someone would find a degenerate thing to do with it, but it is something to think about.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, I've gone through I think pretty much all the notable reprints. Chev, is there anything you want to talk about, especially any new cards that have caught your eye?
New cards. Well, So one interesting thing to note, and I find slightly humorous, is just because of the way that the set has been kind of printed. So Cultivate is another one of the reprints, and for those of you who don't know, that's the search your library for up to 2 basic lands, one in the battlefield, one into the hand, and that's like a classic commander card, bread and butter of green, and it's
Mm-hmm.
getting a showcase printing because I think they're trying to do that for a lot of the classic cards, and so it's getting a full art showcase treatment. But on that card, the set symbol shows it as a rare, and this is done because all showcase cards are rare. So this is an intentional thing. But if you remember, Julian, there was that whole issue with the starter decks around 2018 where the cards had collector's numbers that were higher than the actual set, and it said something like 292 out of 272 sort of thing, and people thought that
Yeah.
that meant they were like misprints
Misprints.
or whatever, and they bought crazy amounts of those Llanowar elves. That I think that particular printing of the Llanowar elf is still like $3 or $4 when you can get any other copy for 50 cents. So
Huh.
I think this is a unique thing that's kind of cool for especially this kind of showcase treatment cultivate. But I bet there's going to be a few people that make the mistake thinking that this is a like printing error and go ahead and buy a ton of these because it's a weird concept to put into your head that the showcase version of it is going to be a rare. Does that mean that the showcase will show up in the rare slot in your pack, or could you randomly open one of these in the uncommon slot? Like that's it's something that's popped into my mind. I'm sure someone has commented on it somewhere, but I've definitely been thinking about that set symbol shenanigan nonsense.
Yeah, that was not
Um,
something that I even noticed until you brought it up, but that is interesting. And there's gonna be a lot of confusion. Some people are gonna spec,
yeah,
and they're going to have a bad day. I do want to say
yeah.
though, the showcase art is sweet,
Oh, it's really cool.
especially
Just like
that
having
in
someone in a
foil is
field
gonna
like
be.
calling up those flowers. It's like a reimagining of the initial art that I don't think has changed in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So I definitely want to try and pick up one of those, preferably in foil.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think I'm not excited to see on the other side of the board, the Elder Gargaroth. It's a 5 mana 6/6, two green and three, and it has Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever it attacks or blocks, choose to create a 3/3 beast, gain 3 life, or draw a card. Which, like I know Green has been doing a lot with drawing cards recently. Based on creature toughness, based on creature power, based on number of creatures, but generally there is some tie to creatures. And here we just have a creature that whenever it attacks, draw a card. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that
Or
feels really
blocks,
blue.
or blocks,
Like
Jeff.
or blocks, yeah. It sounds like a curiosity sort of going on, but even more powerful and stapled onto a green creature. That I don't know why.
Yeah,
I
I
I don't know why
understand
that
this is a
exists.
mythic. I understand this is a mythic, but this is well. Here's what's really messed up, Trev, is that this card is obviously pushed. If you showed this to anyone
Hmm.
even 3 years ago, they'd be like, "Wow, this is ridiculous." Let alone if you showed this to
Yeah.
someone,
It looks
10
like
years.
fan art. It looks like someone just took all their favorite abilities from a bunch of things and threw them together on like one of those custom Magic websites.
Yeah. The sad thing is, I don't think this thing is gonna see play. Do you know what I
Really?
mean? There is so much interaction in. I actually saw a fan art on our Twitter earlier that was Elder Gargaroth, but then the text box was changed to choose one: get bounced by Teferi, get bounced by Brazen Borrower, or get countered by Absorb. And I was like, I mean, yeah, that sounds about right. Um, it's just the fact that it doesn't have haste and you have to wait to do any of this stuff. There's just so much interaction that it's unfortunate that such a clearly pushed card like this is getting done so dirty. But
Hmm.
I think I think once again, like a lot of the cards that we've talked about, this is going to be super sweet in Commander because honestly, in Commander, I
Oh,
feel like since you're playing, a 4 person or a 3 person game, the focus is not as much on you, and people are honestly kind of almost welcoming of this stuff. They're like, oh yeah, like get in like 1 or 2 attacks with your Gargaroth, then all swords to plowshare it, because there's other things going on. So I think this will be really cool in any sort of big green deck, but in standard
yeah.
right now, it's kind of sad that this is. I don't think it's going to do much. No, that being said, I'm gonna get beat down by it somehow, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Something else that I'm interested to see how well it does is Chandra's Incinerator. It's a 1 red and 5, 6/6. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn, has trample, and whenever a source you control deals non combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. I mean, one, that's a ton of text on a card. And I think alone it would be a powerful 6/6 with that cost reduction ability. Because if we're thinking like mono red aggro, you drop Stomp, Bone Crusher Giants, deal 2 damage, and a Shock. And then you can be playing this guy for 2 mana. And you can bring this out like turn 2, turn 3, probably not turn 2. But the chance of playing this super early is really there, especially in older formats where you have access to Lightning Bolt. Like just imagine, Rift Bolt, Lightning Bolt, and then this guy, and you're playing it for essentially 1 mana, and that's wild because it's still a pretty powerful card. But then on top of that, it has text that reminds me of Banefire Dragon.
Yeah, that's I was originally thinking like in Modern and Legacy, like you were saying, just like Lightning Bolt, 6/6 with trample plus upside. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, even in Standard, like you're saying, these mono red decks can deal so much damage so quickly that like yeah, this could come down turn 3 or easily and just start wreaking havoc. And then I do like that they've made a point of putting a lot of checks on planeswalkers in this set, which I think is one of the
Yeah.
things in Standard that's really been causing a lot of issues. So I like that, but this is
Yeah.
a whole nother level of holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I love the art. I think the art is super cool.
Oh, it's super cool, especially with the Chandra treatment, the Chandra showcase with the flames coming out of the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of
I think
Chandra, oh sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of Chandra, I wanted to briefly touch on the new planeswalkers that have been printed. I'm not super impressed.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I think they're pretty cookie cutter, really. There's a mythic planeswalker for each color.
Yep.
We haven't seen the green one yet.
Yeah, we have. It's Garrick. Haven't we? Haven't we seen, or was that the Planeswalker one?
I thought that was the Planeswalker deck one, but I might have just it might have been spoiled later today, and I just hadn't seen it yet. But
no, I think you're right. That is the Planeswalker one. Yeah, we're still waiting on Garrick. Hopefully, he brings something interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking
at.
I
see what you mean. I think it's just because core sets are, they're an opening spot for new players to jump in. I've never seen core planeswalkers that really do much to push the needle forward. But I think maybe Wizards is taking a step back recently after War of the Spark, where they really did push the needle in every single direction possible to create that number of planeswalkers. And now they're kind of, taking a step back, realizing fan feedback, and being like, okay, maybe we'll take it easy for a little bit. Give you the planeswalkers with the abilities you expect, doing the things that, they're expected to do with a pretty decent loyalty to mana cost that's not really anywhere ridiculous. I'm not going to probably be playing any of them. I'm glad they exist, though, because they're going to give the players who are opening the set and excited to open the cards something badass to play. But I think you're right that they're relatively, medium power level. Like what you'd expect out of a Planeswalker, but nothing that really scares you when you're looking down the barrel at it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a core set, so... But I did just want to say, sometimes we see interesting things, but these planeswalkers really are not doing it for me. Honestly, even the new Teferi. Let's talk about the elephant in the room for a second. Let's talk about new Teferi. This is if y'all that are listening are not aware, this is supposedly a Teferi focused set, just like the last core set was Chandra focused. So there's a lot of things that reference Teferi, a lot of things that have Teferi on the art. But there's also a new blue Teferi Planeswalker, which for some reason they decided to give like 12 different arts.
Yeah, it's so they have one for each season in the background, which is cool. Like, all right, you have 4 basic Teferi arts with different backgrounds, but then they're like, of course, we need the showcase treatment. Okay, so now we're up to 8. Then we have the borderless treatment, so that's 9. And then we have all these in foil, which makes it 18. So in this set, there are 18 different Teferis that exist. Granted, 9 of them are foil, 9 of them aren't. But
Right.
yeah, that's a lot of Teferi you could be opening.
Yeah. Plus, of course, there's the Teferis that are in the Planeswalker decks.
The
But anyway,
Planeswalker deck, yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about this Teferi. 2 and 2 blue, 3 mana or 3 loyalty Planeswalker. He has a static ability. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi Master Time on any player's turn anytime you could cast an instant. So that means that on my turn, I get to activate him once. The once every turn rule still applies. So I get to activate him once, and then on your turn, assuming we're playing a standard, a 2-player format,
Right.
I get to activate him again, and I can also activate him at instant speed. So his +1 is draw a card, discard a card. So I can activate that on my turn, see what I'm working with, and then pass to you. And at the end of your turn, I can loot again. He also has -3 target creature you don't control phases out. Which
go ahead. So surprised they're putting phasing into a core set.
So
like,
it's
of
not
all the things to kind of throw in here. I'm just like, I'm floored.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it is a Teferi associated mechanic back in the day when they actually had phasing. It's not proper phasing, because proper phasing, I believe, it always phases in and out. So the reminder text on this is, for target creature you don't control phases out, treat it and anything attached to it as though they don't exist until its controller's next turn, which seems like a very kind of colloquial way to say it. I didn't ever think that would ever be rules text, but that is how it is. So if there's
right, well, remember, Julian, that this isn't giving a creature phasing, because phasing is the ability that means they phase out and phase in.
Right.
But because a creature with phasing, when it is in, it phases out. So phasing out is the ability that removes it and brings it back. But I think this is in line with what they've done before, because if you remember Teferi's protection from Commander, that also has the phases out text. It doesn't give your permanents phasing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I see what you're saying. So this is interesting. I mean, it basically just takes something out of the equation. Target creature you don't control, so you can't use it to protect your things. But you can remove a blocker. You can remove something that's activating, like a Mayhem Devil, or something.
Yep.
And it just seems like it'll be very annoying since you can activate it at instant speed. Although it does -3, so you can't. Yeah. You'd have to. I guess your line would be +1 on my turn, and then on your turn -3 down to 1 for Teferi. I do think that's nice. His loyalty is low enough, and his abilities seem to be balanced enough that it's not like he's going to have crazy amounts of loyalty like an Oko or something. But how do you feel about this Planeswalker overall? I really don't know how to rate it.
I think it has the ability. It's granted the 3 Teferi. The minus is to bounce it back to your hand. I still think this is going to be as played because it does take something out of the equation for an entire turn. And I don't remember the specifics of phasing, but does it come back with summoning sickness or not? I don't know.
I don't believe so. So.
Oh, okay. So it's slightly it's kind of like a bounce that
it's super
is
weird.
Come back regardless.
It's super weird because it doesn't. It coming back. It still has auras and equipment attached to it.
Right.
It doesn't trigger enter the battlefield abilities or anything like that. I think it technically, quote unquote, has haste. Doesn't have summoning sickness, however you want to put it. But it's just super weird.
Okay, so they decided to print a super weird mechanic that on half of the versions of Teferi don't have the reminder text, which so any of the Planeswalker treatments or the Teferi treatment of the card, they don't have room for the reminder text. So I'm just thinking of someone who's never played the game before opening this up and then wondering what in the hell phases out means. And then since it is such a complex mechanic, and then even the reminder text says treat it and anything attached as though they don't exist. Okay, but that's a confusing thing. It's an interesting choice, and it's definitely going to be, I think, an annoyance in Standard because of the ability to do it on any turn at instant speed They can do it in response to something. They don't need to proactively bounce something. They can bounce it once you know it's coming for their throat. And then the -10, like if you ever got there, I don't think that's a huge concern, but I'm still kind of concerned if a Teferi can get to give someone 2 extra turns, especially in a color like blue.
I think, yeah, I don't think the ultimate is something that we're going to be worrying about, except for in Commander, where now all of a sudden there's if a full turn cycle is 4 or 5 people, that's 4 or 5
Yeah.
pluses that I get, because looting in Commander is great. You know what I mean? You're
Yep.
just drawing cards, and plus there's so much use for the graveyard too that it's just like, I'll uptick on everyone's turn. Like, what do I care?
Yeah.
And then, God forbid you have any way to put additional counters on or have it enter with multiple counters. It doesn't immediately ultimate if you have like doubling season or something like that, but it easily can, once around the table. So
Yeah.
I think it'll definitely be much more of a threat in Commander. In Standard, I agree with you. I don't know where it's gonna line up yet, but I think it's gonna be annoying for sure.
Something that's interesting to point out, just as kind of a thing, is if we look at Teferi's tutelage, which now, if you guys aren't aware, for each of the Planeswalkers, they're doing a cycle of cards from common to mythic, mythic being the Planeswalker, that all get this special frame that is related to the Planeswalker in some way. And there's also basic lands that have the same theme as this sort of vertical cycle. So Teferi's uncommon is Teferi's tutelage. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard. But then whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2 cards. And I'm not paraphrasing there. The card is actually saying target opponent mills 2 cards. And then the reminder text is they put 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. So, Julian, I think this means that we're finally seeing mills as a keyword.
Yeah, it would appear so. I'm wondering how often they're going to incorporate this, and I wonder if they'll, quote unquote errata things, at least in Gather, to this. But I mean, it's been common in the Magic players lexicon for so long that I feel like it's. I forget where I was seeing this discussion, but they were talking about, when is loot going to be an official thing? When is rummage just going to be an official keyword? Because it just, once you know that sort of thing,
they're so common that
once you know that sort of thing, it makes it so much cleaner for the templating on the card and everything. But then there's questions of, obviously if you're new or you've never heard that referred to, it's not an intuitive thing. If I just say, okay,
adds a level of complexity.
Yeah, it's like if I just say, okay, I'm gonna loot, you're like, you're gonna what now? So
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they
because,
do.
Like, for all of these things, the core sets were removed because they were seen as not relevant, and then core sets were brought back as a way to answer problems in Standard and be an entry point for new players with relatively like easier themes. The draft environment is supposed to be easier to solve, and then here we are seeing phasing coming back and mills being keyworded, which I'm happy that these things are happening because I love seeing new mechanics and interesting old ideas brought back in any sort of regard. But I'm interested to see that they're happening in a core set. And granted, I'm not sure where else they could happen because they need to line up with the set's themes. And I don't think we're ever going to see a regular set that has phasing as a main mechanic again. But for something that is kind of touted as the set where things are supposed to be easy, we're seeing things that are making it slightly harder to understand.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and I mean they certainly haven't. There's a lot of cards in here that are complex cards, powerful cards, but complex cards. Yeah. So
take for example the new card Chromatic Orrery. It's 7 generic, legendary artifact. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. Cool. But it taps for 5 colorless, and then you can tap 5 and to draw a card for each color among permanents you control. And, granted the way templating works, this is a fine card, but I think a lot of people or new players are going to forget that when you tap it, that gives you 5 mana of any color, as opposed to 5 generic mana because of its initial ability at the top. And so, like, it's good for templating, but it is a confusing and powerful mechanic that's being introduced.
Yeah, that card is sweet though. That's going into
Mm.
Kozilek, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Any kind
Yeah.
of big mana rock that I can tap for a ton of mana, it loses out on a ton of its benefit. Because of course, mana of any color, pointless. Draw a card for each color,
Well,
pointless.
so
It's really just
I guess you don't get to draw. Yeah, it's just like a really big Gilded Lotus, basically.
it's a really big Gilded Lotus. But hey, Kozilek will take as many of those as it can.
Yeah, I mean you've got ways to untap in that deck, so you could generate a lot of mana.
I got a Voltaic key or two.
Yeah. Well, you've also got like a doubling cube in there, so it can get real dirty real fast.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chev. Well, I think I've hit everything I want to talk about today. I think next week when we come back, we'll talk about more new cards. Is there anything you wanted to hit on the way out?
No, I think that covers it. We've got a lot of cool reprints, especially for a commander coming in here. And I think it's like, it's been a while since Wizards has acknowledged that casual commander is probably the biggest format in Magic right now. And I'm really glad to see them sort of capitalizing on that knowledge with giving us all the reprints we've talked about, including Lore Scale Codal and, what else is in there? There's so many other things that are very or Baneslayer Angel, like all these things that probably aren't going to see a ton of play in Standard, but they seem like hidden gems for the Commander folk to get all of these powerful cards in $4 booster packs, which is not something that you really see. So seeing all of this sort of reprints and cards focused at this giant audience is a fantastic thing to see, and it's almost making me interested in buying a box. I don't know if this continues up the way that it's been going. I might do something I haven't done since Battle for Zendikar, which was the wrong time to do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for a little history lesson for our friends, the first box that you and I ever bought was actually Core. Was it Core 2015? The quote unquote
No,
last Core set. The one with
it could be.
It was the one with the flip walkers.
No, that was Origins, but yeah, it
Origins,
served the purpose of a core set. Yeah,
Origins, right,
yeah,
right.
this could be a way to bring it full circle.
The quote unquote, yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly have a little bit more disposable income now than back then. But
yeah, I think that covers it for me.
All right, sweet. Well, that was fun. There's been a lot of cool cards, plenty that we have not even talked about. So hopefully we'll talk about those and many more on the next installment of the Brew Crew podcast. See y'all later.